So, I think, good morning. It's about 10:13 and we're opening the collective bargaining session for, the Laredo Fire, collective bargaining agreement. I think there were some technical difficulties that we discussed yesterday. We have the audio of it, so that's good. And I think that the city is recording it in several different manners so that we can ensure that we have an accurate record. It's also being live streamed, Omedo?
It's supposed to be, yes.
Okay, so
I'm
hopefully-
confirming that right now as well.
Hopefully the live stream will be working today as well. But the session will be posted and archived, available on the YouTube link as well. Thank you we had a very productive day yesterday. I'm working on the tentative agreements for the no changes, and I need a little bit more time because there was a lot of them. I just need to make sure that they're accurate, but we will have those completed and signed off by the end of the day. We did go through all of the additional articles that you proposed to us yesterday. There was 8, 11, 20, 22, 25, 27, 31, 41, 42, and the new proposed article of 43. And we went through there's a lot of them that we have to do homework and get information and data to do.
I think you missed 21.
Let's see, I had 8, 11, 20, 21, 22, 25, 27, 31, 41, 42, and 43. And then I didn't see, is there a way that you can email those to me today?
Yes.
Okay, just so I have them and I can work off of those if we can do anything with them. There's a lot of them tend to seem very simple, but can be pretty complex. For instance, one that may affect civil service board commission rules and things that would be outside of the city's control, that we want to make sure that we have things in place, in our counter proposal as to how to deal with that stuff. There are, I think that we may be able to, and we're still working on it, but I anticipate that we will be able to tentatively agree to the Article 21 holidays. So I'm going to caucus with my team and make sure that we have everything there and that there aren't any more questions. But I believe that will be a tentative agreement that we can reach today. I was also looking at, there's a few issues that we just need to dole out on Article 8, but I believe Article 8, which is the duties and the coverage of basically the workers' compensation information. We may have a counter proposal today, but that may be something that we could potentially reach a tentative agreement on today. I think that the intent and the goal on both sides is the same, and it's just a language issue to make sure that we clearly address the issue that you have raised. And I believe, in talking to my team, one of the issues I think that may have brought about this concern was that during COVID, there was directives and orders that were being given to do things that were not normally in the scope of what was being done, and you just wanted to make sure, and the chief just wants to make sure that there's coverage for that, because it is in the terms of the scope of the employment of being a firefighter. Okay. So I think we will have a counter proposal just because I think that we have some language to propose there, and I'm hoping that if that language can be, if you're not happy with it when we present it, that if we can work on it together, I think that we can reach a tentative agreement on that one today as well. Okay. So that's what we have, because I still have all the work that I'm doing. I didn't know if you had anything more to present, or if you wanted to just focus on those today, or whatever you need to do on your side. I'm opening the floor to you.
Okay. We did have article that we were still working on wording, which is Article 6, I believe.
Okay.
That's a matter. Longest.
I'm still working on it.
Okay, we had an issue with Article 6, or not issue, but just ideas.
Okay.
We're still working on the language of that. That one we didn't present yesterday. We'll continue to work on it.
Okay.
We do have the other articles to present, which are,
And the way, so that we can keep things moving, we're focusing today on working on the tentative agreements for the no changes, the tentative agreements on the 2 articles I believe we can focus on today, and obtaining information on that first set. But if you present the second set, that allows us to start getting our homework and process to obtain data and ask the questions, and so that we can keep on moving during the break that we're taking until next week. Okay, so if you want to present them, that would be great, and we can start working on those. You need to take a caucus? Yeah, no, okay, we're gonna take a quick caucus and we'll. No, do you want it, we can leave so y'all can stay here.
No.
Okay, all right, we're gonna take a quick
It should be
caucus.
pretty quick.
Sure. Not very long. We're back from caucus, and before I forget, there's a couple just logistical things. We have done the sign-in sheet for both, and I've looked at them, and they're correct.
correct?
And I'll take one and you take one. And then I think, yeah, and and then with regard to, before we go into the rest of this, I think we need to discuss the upcoming dates, because we have found that, just in discussing during caucus, that we have some conflicting scheduling problems that have arisen. As you know, our current city manager, interim city manager, his last day is on the 22nd. And in the meantime, although we had looked at having, I think we had determined to have the collective bargaining session on the 20th, some critical members of my team from management and the budget office have now been required to participate in a council member workshop on both Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the council meetings that Monday before. So that creates a problem for us. I won't have the ability to have everything and the information I need prepared before the 20th, and half of my team won't be here. So we're looking at, then we looked at the next week, and we could do the 22nd, but I understand that you're not available on the 22nd either, 21st and 22nd. So the next date that was available, because they are also having the budget workshops the next following week, and my same team members are the ones doing the presentations and the budget, I believe is the Thursday, July 28th.
Because our budget workshop is approved 26th, 27th, and 28th.
Oh, then the 29th.
Budget workshops are August.
Oh, sorry.
11.
You're right, 28th.
Okay,
28 we're good.
28th we're good.
Presentation of the budget on the
Yes. Right,
27th.
I'm so sorry.
okay, so the presentation's on the 27th, so we have the 28th available.
And this is contingent upon council confirming it on Monday. Okay, the dates. So, because we asked for the 27th to submit the budget. right?
Yeah, the 18 is, we have an item on the agenda to block those dates for those items. 7, August, and 11. Hopefully, we get it.
Okay. If those dates are not locked, do those dates open up, or?
They open up.
Okay, so,
But pretty much we're kind of tied to a date.
because you're already on that deadline, okay.
It'll be a new meeting on the 27th. So 28th and 29th, good.
I'm not good the 29th, I only am available the 28th. So how does the 28th look for y'all?
Yes, I'm fine. Now for you and you'll be available?
Yeah.
Okay,
So we can lock in the 28th already.
so we'll lock in the 28th. So we'll lock in the 28th as the next meeting. And then I think that we are all available the first week of August, for August 1 through 5th, 1st through the 5th. I am not available the next week because I have several big court hearings that are scheduled that take all day.
Okay.
So
It's good for us to.
yeah, so if we can find 1 or 2 dates on that that 1st of August week, that way we can continue our progression.
You can do the third, fourth, or second and third.
The Wednesdays and Thursdays kind of work best for us, I think,
Okay.
because of the way that the meetings are scheduled, for the city council meetings and all the other prep. So does the 3rd and the 4th look good for everyone?
We're up.
Huh?
We're up.
You can't?
We're gonna be preparing for the 9/20, that's when we prepare all the documents for council. We have to wait. So it's gonna be. I can try, but it's.
Will you be available, Rosario?
I'll have to be in the capital, but I was thinking if I sacrifice a day, 1 day,
Okay.
1 day.
Let's
Just
book 2
continue.
days, and then as we come up, we will solidify for sure at least 1 day. And if I can do it without them here, then we can do 2 days. You know, I just need to make sure that I have the availability.
Okay.
So,
we're looking at
tentative
3rd and
on
4th.
the August 3rd and 4th.
Technically, after the budget, we could devote even a week if we have. Right after budget workshops, we should devote any day.
And the budget workshops happen the week of
8,
8th.
9,
9 and 11.
9, 10, 11.
Okay, so that week, yeah, and that's the week that I'm.
And the way people were preparing for it, so, but anytime after the 11th, we could devote 24 hours a day.
Okay, so then we have August, basically 15th through September 2nd, those 3 weeks. Let me see if I have any obligations.
I'm out the last week, the 29th to the 2nd, I have a hearing.
So we have August, so then we have August 15th through the 26th, those 2 weeks. Let me see if I have any hearing this. Okay, I'm good those 2 weeks. So just look at those 2 weeks and provide us, I guess, confer with your team and provide us with 2 dates for each of those 2 weeks.
So the 3rd and 4th is not gonna happen?
No,
Or
yes,
still?
this is in addition to that, just to continue, because I think we need to be at least, make sure that we're making progression and working on these things and having the sessions. And I usually prefer, for my scheduling purposes, the Wednesdays and Thursdays work best,
Mhm.
I think, for my team.
Mhm.
Of course, if there's a Wednesday or Thursday that doesn't work for you, and then there's another day available, we can make,
Or Friday.
we can look, yeah, or a Friday, we can make that work.
Just have that 18th for the motion that says.
Yeah, the 18th is gonna be on.
You do the.
Yeah, and the 18th,
That was
we have
on.
council meeting. I don't know if we're gonna pass that.
Oh, maybe.
The 19th?
Yeah, we'll just look at that,
On those
and
2
we'll,
weeks,
we can exchange emails so that I can confirm the council calendar and the calendars, of the internal management calendars that they have. I just need to make sure everyone is available and that we have the time for the preparation to have a productive work session. Okay? Okay, so then, after those dates, I think, I'm still working on getting the TAs, and I'll continue to work on that, and we should have them, prepared for, an afternoon session.
Okay.
And so I'm still working on those.
We'll get started on the next proposal.
Okay.
The next proposal will be Article 12, staffing of companies. Should be 6 okay. Let's start with Article 12.1. Reads right now, the city shall endeavor to maintain the following personnel levels to adequately and safely staff each company. And then it lists companies and desired strength. Letter A, engines, 4 firefighters. B, crash, fire, and rescue, 4 firefighters. C, aerial ladders, 4 firefighters. D, emergency medical services, EMS, 2 firefighters, emergency technician paramedics. Fire prevention, 4 firefighters. Letter F, fire investigation, 4 firefighters. Our proposed changes is to strike endeavor to in the first sentence on 12.1. Change desired strength to minimum strength, or strike desired, add minimum. Add letter G, EMS training, 5 firefighters. Letter H, fire training, 5 firefighters. And letter I, ARP coordinator, 1 firefighter.
Okay, on the first, the striking of endeavor to and the striking of desire, does this now make it a requirement? Prior to endeavoring, that's where the best case scenario was, right? Like if they had the budget and the authority to do that, that they would do that staffing number.
Yes,
So does this now make it a requirement?
to staff an engine company with 4 people. It's just to mirror the standard followed by, I believe, NFPA, by the NFPAs, by according to the ruling, during structural firefighting or any other type of rescue incident, where it follows the 2-in, 2-out rule.
Okay.
Right now, the way it stands is, of course, because of staffing shortages or, holiday vacation, sick outs, any kind of causing a vacancy, the minimum required before triggering any type of overtime is 3. The only thing is, right now, when they respond to an incident, in order to comply with the 2-in, 2-out rule, you have to have mandatory 2-engine company before any type of action is taken, unless it's an immediate life-saving maneuver where it's basically like immediate. Right now, if I act right now, it'll save a life. Beyond that, it's kind of limited to.
So you're saying that, administration would then change their process instead of sending 2 engines, they would send 1 and that would resolve it? Or is that what you're saying?
What it would do, it would make not only the health and safety be better, right, in a sense, it would make it more efficient, and we would have more personnel. But of course, if anybody, any crew that has a 4-man will be more efficient than by far.
They're gonna pay an engine company.
So it becomes a health and safety hazard, and you have less manpower, controlling an emergency as opposed to having 4 member crew. Does that make any sense?
The intention is to just pool less units.
Well, that
Major-
was my question. Is
major
the
events.
intention- That was my question. Is the intention to pull less units in? And the answer is no.
Well,
Is it yes?
no, it's not.
Not to change the standard response, but whenever we have a major event, it's to,
Well, you still
Lessen.
do, you put everyone. I mean, if it's a major event, everyone goes out.
Yeah,
Or as
well,
many as.
as many as needed, right? And this would reduce the as needed, so the extra units, so that way we can still maintain the safety of the city while we're fighting a major event.
Because it's understood when it's a major event, train derailment, a high rise, anything where it's a mass casualty, responding to the airport, you're gonna send, as many units as required. But right now, especially with the health and safety issue, because of the heat index, the way it's been hitting, we're having to trigger more personnel at smaller range fires because, again, you have more units responding. And the type of response right now with the programs are being instilled into the department, it's causing multiple units to go to a response to an incident, mostly fires, where it wouldn't have triggered as many if it was a four-man engine company. Because right now, if they want 2 teams to back up the original 2 teams that showed in, when you call one engine company with 4 people, they'll make the captain, driver dress up and either the assistant pipeman or 2 pipemen. So you have 2 people, you have 2 crews to replace 2 crews. But right now, if it's a 3-man engine company and you want to replace 2 crews, you have to call 2 engine companies.
2 engine.
So, I mean, you're having responses where normally where it'd be maybe on our normal Delta Line structure fire response, it's 3 engine companies, an AT of district chief, and EMS captain, and EMS, and an ambulance.
So have we costed it out? Have you all costed out adding that additional, because it's going to mean an additional academy? Or 2?
Well, we already,
Actually, you're gonna need 2. Have we costed that out? Because this request,
Mhm.
right now it's desired, this request will have a financial impact.
Yes.
Have you,
we
has it been
already
costed
have
out?
academies lined up.
They're for replacements, to replace retirees.
And we understand that, but don't we have any, like, besides the ones that we have right now, we have other ones lined up?
What you're asking for is for additional personnel that are not on the line right now.
Mhm.
And so we'll have to add a new academy. If it hasn't been costed out, we'll cost it out. I just want to make sure that you all know
Mhm.
there will be a financial impact,
Yes.
what you're asking. for.
Yes.
And hasn't been costed out yet.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll provide it.
I have a question. How many members are in an engine when they respond, and how many are on the RQ?
Under optimal staffing, the way, I'm talking about nobody's sick, nobody's on vacation, no annual leave, no anything out like that. Right now, normally, the way because of the manpower schedule, it's 4 people.
Right
If
now,
you look at the roster where nobody's missing at all, it's 4 people. It's 4 people on an engine company, 2 on an ambulance.
So what does it wind up being averaging on an average day with accounting for
Right.
absences?
Right now, the way it is it's a minimum of 3.
Usually
that's
when we
what
have
we're
our full staffing level, it's 5.1.
Okay, at
Right.
full staffing.
Yeah, that would be on the roster, there'll be 5 people for,
Are you including engine and RQ, or more
no,
just
the
like the
ambulance,
engine?
just the engine, strictly engine. The ambulance is separate. But because of our shortages, we've been basically having 3 people minimum all the time. Yeah, we have to call overtime to fill those slots. The ambulance is always 2, but if someone gets hurt, then that's what the extra personnel on the engine is, since we can all rotate out, avoid burnout, avoid injuries,
And
right now with
actually,
these shortages. we're having to do
and
that.
to make a point that was brought up, that was my oversight. Technically, the cost issue to it is not there because we're already supposed to be at that manpower. The only thing that this triggers is the fact of to maintain the four manpower, to maintain
which
it.
we don't have.
We don't have.
We'd have to bring in.
Well, yeah, the academies are scheduled right now to replace the people that are missing to maintain this manpower.
Retirees.
To maintain this manpower.
Yeah, to maintain.
Because our FTEs the required FTEs don't change.
I don't think and I think this is an item that we need to discuss with the chief and the manpower. As I understand it, like you mentioned, the roster, even when you're fully staffed, that nobody's out sick or vacation, the roster might say for, but you always have people out on vacation, safety, services and all that. So right now, even though we endeavor to have 4, normally it's 3. So, yeah, we definitely require more positions because now you would have to maintain it, in order to maintain, you have to put the higher. There is a potential number of new firefighters to be able to maintain 4 based on all the equipment of the vehicles that we have. And then, so if there is a cost for the new FTEs, and there's going to be a cost for OT in case people are out on vacation, so there's still a cost for the overtime, people now have to have 4 people. It's no longer endeavor, it's a must.
And that's where we go back to these slots are already there, are supposed to be filled by somebody, which you just said you're hiring an academy to fill those vacant slots from retirees. I mean, that's the intent of, we're not, the additional manpower is letter G, H, and I. That is,
Those add positions.
those add positions.
That's what, yeah, that was my next question when we got
So
there.
that's the next step. On the desire, the reason to strike it and put minimum is because those slots are already supposed to be on those engine companies.
So, question, and I think I know the answer, I know the answer, the reason you need these 5 EMS trainers is because we got regular firefighters to do this, and so we put them back up.
Yes, and it's also to basically streamline the training division on the EMS side, because right now, through the accreditation, it's taking so long, so they're pulling from the line to staff the EMS, side of the training, which we've been taken from the line. These are in
These would be 11 new positions,
11 new positions.
which right now we're using.
We already have them, the
We
firefighters are.
There are-
use the holes for the, some of it part,
Yeah,
we're just saying we have 4, but we don't.
The firefighters are already there now, they're already working, right, it's just actually creating a
Right,
position.
because we pulled them from the line to do this, and so that's why I'm saying, we don't have them, we have to do them in the academy.
Mhm.
That,
Yeah,
we're
that's what I'm
kind of
saying.
saying the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, on the bottom part, yes, those do, trigger additional FTEs.
Pulled them from the line to do
And,
this.
yeah, and our biggest, I wouldn't say it's a worry, but we're trying to help the department itself to kind of streamline it, because we've been advised that our EMS training division has been selected for, pilot program because of our passing rate that and I can get you the exact number from, I believe it's something like in the high 90s, and by the second time, these guys are passing because they're gonna pass. So our EMS division was selected to consider a pilot program where they're cutting out 3 months of any type of academy to remove the EMS basic training and go directly into paramedic, which is more, labor intensive on the cadets themselves, because, of course, that's what they're here for.
Right.
But they're going from 0 to 100, in other words, instead of.
We're doing ALS.
Yes. And if that triggers and goes through the way it's being planned out, the EMS training division needs those personnel to have their, like I say, right now, they have beyond 5, but you're pulling from one pool to put into another. So.
Which is impacting the strength
Yes.
on the engine companies, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the triggering on that part. In
That's
fact,
why we went in the academy, because we pulled it from the line, they're no longer at 4,
Mhm.
and so we'll
Okay.
cost it out.
That was one of the concerns when they brought this forward, was that, because we talked about it, that they are staffed at 4, but because of departmental needs, what they're doing is stating that they can put it in different places. So they're allowed to do that because of the language is permissive. So making it mandatory minimum, that puts a more of a direct requirement for them to staff it. Part of the, I know we were talking about 2 in, 2 out, there's a Texas local government code citation for that. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Do you have
Uh,
it,
yes.
which one are you referring to?
419-046, that's the 2 in, 2 out. A lot of departments, when that first came in, were basically, doing it through allocating another unit to respond. I know a lot of the units, a lot of departments run 2 and 3 person minimum. And so they were sending more units. If you maintain a 4-person staffing, on a rig, that helps with that. And what it is, it's a safety issue. So you have 2 people, rigs, rapid entry crews that are available to perform rescue either when they get on the scene, but it's mandatory for firefighters if they go down and their pass units go off to have them in waiting. They're not committed to a fire suppression until, they make sure that the firefighters are taken care of and everybody goes down. But it's just one of the safeties that we have. Increased staffing also helps reduce the workman's comp costs as well. There's less hectic running around in the fire scene. we have more people available to do the jobs that are needed to be done at the fire scene during operations, so it does save costs there and work-related injuries and time off, so there's benefits both ways.
You made reference to an NFPA. Do you have the number on that? Just so I make sure I can read it.
Well, that was what he was reading.
I'm referring to.
Talking about the 2 in, 2 out.
Right.
It is.
And I know there's
NFPA
an,
required,
yeah,
but it was adopted, you know how Texas is not an NFPA state.
right,
Where it just happens.
right.
They have to adopt it through local government code, that was part of it.
Okay, yeah, but I just
That
wanted to
was-
know the basis, the NFP number
NFPA
document
1710.
1710.
Is it 17 what?
1710.
1710, that's right, yeah.
And then on letter H, the fire training is basically mirroring the same, intent of EMS training. Right now, currently, I believe they are, again, fully staffed, they go beyond the 5, but then that still pulls, from the line. Now, if they go back and we'll put them back on the line, so it won't, that operations, now you're hampering the EMS or fire training division, which right now, since we're behind the 8 ball because of, lack of staffing, it's gonna hinder the response for that, or the workings of both divisions. On letter I, the ARC coordinator, that was, brought up because it was always understood that somebody there at that station was gonna be in charge of handling all the paperwork. But the paperwork has become substantial, you know, because of the upkeep of the drugs, the continuing contacting of companies, research, training, the actual dealing with the FAA, and actually I have right now, sitting behind us, one that's slotted for, that's the designee as, you know, you're in charge of ARF to basically become the paperwork person, go-to person.
Just for the benefit of the record, what does the ARFF or ARF stand for?
Aircraft Rescue Firefighter.
Okay,
It falls under letter B, the crash fire rescue.
okay.
Yeah, the initials are aircraft rescue.
I have a question on that. When do you want it to become effective? Is it at the sometime?
Yes.
An implementation, and that's actually on, I believe on letter C.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure, okay, so great, you give us that. Because I'm.
Because we understand,
thinking about
yes,
Yeah.
because we understand that right now, we're already behind. These academies are basically in replace, anything that triggers beyond that is gonna consider more academies, or any additional stations. It's gonna be, you know, it can't be a immediate
day one fix.
implementation, yeah, it's not. This is
So-
more for, in the long run.
Great, I'd like to know.
Okay, any more questions on that 12.1?
We have,
So then,
12.3 C, staffing levels will be 407 FTEs as of 2018. We put the strike 407 to increase it to 416, and 2018 to 2022. This is just to recalibrate or recalculate the amount of FTEs required according to our staffing units, because this 407 was off of the units available from the last, the last contract was signed. Since then, because of the addition of what was the unit number? 9110? The addition of 9110, which is at Station 10 by Loop and Doctors.
Can you explain the 416 again, because if you have. If you have 416, or let's say we have a 416 because of this unit 9112, but then you're adding 11 more, if we agree, right?
Yeah,
If you agree,
The 11
the 416 plus 11 more is 427.
Yes. All that's saying is that we're supposed to be at 416 right now, And if negotiated and approved, the extra 11 would cause 427. But the 427, those last 11 would be, a period where you would have up to, you have a grace period.
416 is where you're at now. right?
416 is where we're supposed to be at.
They're at 407 now.
Well,
for
according to the
the-
contract language
Right.
from the last one, yeah.
Right.
But one-
407 is where we are now.
Yes.
From the previous contract, has there been an increase of stations?
It was one additional unit because I believe when this contract was signed, and it was,
No, the one right here on,
University.
McPherson and the Loop, Popular, the ambulance was added there.
because from what we got from the previous negotiating team is that 407 already included the one in San Antonio, which is 4004, and the ambulance downtown on 91 Boston. So they kind of already foresaw that, and that's where they got to 407. Since then, it was 9110, which is the one on McPherson by Doctors Hospital. And that, according to the agreement before, triggered an immediate hiring of 9 personnel when we open up the unit. So that's where 416 comes from. So it's just correction of language of where we're supposed to be at.
So it's three.
It's 3 per shift.
Per shift.
Per shift.
And
It should be there?
No, that one, it's an ambulance.
Oh, it's an ambulance.
Yeah, the ambulance supposed would trigger an increase of by 9.
So an ambulance in RQ carries 3 members.
It carries 2 per shift, but the third member is to consider if there's anytime that there's any sick people, any injuries, anything like that, where there's vacations, that's where that one's replaced. So it's basically increasing the manpower just to cover everything. And like I said, this was agreed to on previous contracts.
yeah, the ambulance follow the,
Letter D, emergency medical services.
which is 2 firefighter and the emergency medical. 2 people, right?
Yes.
It's okay. Yeah.
So when it says,
Like I say, it goes back to 9 because when the activation of a unit, if you minimally staff it, at the moment that one person is not there, it's gonna trigger overtime. So this is not to actual staff it on day to day, that's maintained at 2. This is to, in case any vacancies are found, if the city's already covered with somebody there.
So if you have 3 on an ambulance and you have it fully staffed that one day, does that floater, that third one go to an engine?
Yeah.
or
It
do
goes
they
to an
stay
engine company
on-
or it can be sent out to another station to fill a vacancy.
That serves kind of like a floater?
Yes. So
And
it-
there's a third one at every shift, at every station?
It's supposed to be on the, according to the roster, according to the manpower.
Not every
Not
station,
Not every
station.
station has?
not every station.
Has an ambulance.
No, but
Okay,
I mean,
yeah,
the one
right.
that has an ambulance.
The
So-
ones that have, they're supposed to have that extra floor where it maintains, that's where the 5 managing companies come into play. When it's fully staffed and nobody's missing, there's a floor required plus the extra floor.
Because when you count all the individuals, sometimes you have people that are out for about 6 months out of the year, so having that third person there allows to have that fully staffed at 2 paramedics. at a time.
Yes.
They went off of that one video. And then the next letter on letters, the next line on letter C, expected staffing level of 427 FTEs as of 2024. And that gives the period to the hiring in the academy if approved for, it's not an immediate day 1 demand.
Okay. And that accounts, the 427 accounts for the additional 11 that are identified
Yes.
in 12.1 G, H, and I.
Yes. The next one would be all the way to the end of the article where it reads, article. Any supervisor role shall have a span of control ratio of 1 to 5.
1 to 5 miles, people?
How much, what is the current ratio right now?
It falls within the within the 1 to 5.
So you're not asking for an increase in that?
No.
You just wanted to clear up the language on this?
It's an incident command
I think
process.
we want to make sure we have adequate span of control numbers. When the city is to grow, we want to make sure in the future that we're still working safely within this span of control.
But the NFPA would not basically force us to do that? No, the
The-
supervisors.
This is just a supervisory role, so like the district chiefs, EMS captains, they're all in charge of five stations or 5 units. As of right now, but we were to go to a level that, I don't know, in the future, we have 3, 4 stations or something like that. We just want to make sure that span is not getting stretched to an unsafe
Not
level.
stretched, that's the point. I thought you were thinking of it because it's too small, but. we didn't-
No, I'm thinking, we're thinking if it
It
stretches,
goes to go beyond their capabilities.
yeah, we don't want one supervisory role in charge of 8 units at a time. In an incident that's unsafe, according to all our fire training, like incident command system, national.
So what about the chief in this case, because he is technically a supervisor and
So he has
If they-
control over
Yeah.
five stations.
Yeah,
he has control of the fire?
A district chief has control over 5 stations as it reads right now.
They don't let the fire chief hear the fire.
No.
That's too dangerous.
and they can branch off, so like for example, fire chief is in charge of everybody, but he has a chain of command that keeps that span of control.
Right.
Okay,
The lower he goes.
so I go back, is it ratio 1 to 5 people, 1 to 5 stations?
One to five
And defining
units.
supervisors, because it would be a captain or it could be a district chief, like here, we need to define supervisor.
Yeah, because
Well, that's why I put
we
any,
can
any
do
su-
that,
any
yeah.
supervisor role.
Supervisors.
Yeah,
Because
because then, like you're saying, the district chief would have 5
stations.
stations, which would mean,
But then he has 5 captains, which are also supervisors in each station, and they're in charge of less than 5 guys per unit.
So-
So if you don't count him,
Yeah, and I think my question that I need clarity on is when you say have a control ratio of 1 to 5, are you talking about 5 stations, 5 units, or 5
he said
employees?
people.
Because-
That's why I asked, he said people.
you can say people because it keeps
Yeah.
branching,
Yeah.
it keeps branching down. So like a district chief is in charge of 5 stations. Each station has another supervisor, which is a captain. That captain is in charge of the 5 people under him.
So what happens in an emergency, right, until you get, you set up your incident command, no, but what about in an emergency? And let's say we break it and it's 8, what are the repercussions of it being 8 instead of 5, as an example?
So really, whenever there's an emergency, it follows the same span of control of, the rules are the same. District chief has captains, those captains have their people.
Right, but maybe for like an hour that everything's getting organized and there's,
Well, what
violation.
normally happens if there needs for another district chief, another district chief shows up to the incident.
They'll have 2 chiefs that are.
There's times where even the deputy chief shows up and he becomes, incident
The
command,
chief,
and then it's
the
branched
chief.
down.
Just
It has to be
keep
in a
branching
big-
down the
yeah.
lower you go.
As the bottom gets bigger, the top has to.
So this statement you're looking for mainly a district chief ratio, is that what we're trying to do, or is it?
It's just
Well,
any sort-
basically any supervisory role, because it can be an EMS captain. The EMS captain right now is in charge of, like, right now they fall within, because since there's 3 of them, each one of them has 4 ambulances under their command.
so for example,
So they can add 1 unit to each captain and they still fall within that
Is-
span of
is-
command.
Before we move on, is there a chart or some sort of document that
provide a
shows
chart.
this tree? Because I think what you're saying is, you're basing it on an organizational, flow chart or tree chart, like a chain of command that says, the district chief has 5, is in charge of 5 stations. And then the next level under that is in charge of, I'm assuming, I don't know, I haven't seen it, but like units. And then under that, then those are in charge of actual people.
Mhm.
So you're wanting to reflect what, I guess that,
What it already
what
does.
what you're working with. So when you're saying a ratio of 1 to 5, you're including depending on that, whether that supervisor is in charge of a station, or in charge of a unit, or in charge of actual number of people,
That's why we
right?
didn't
Okay.
specify on the supervisory role, we say any supervisory role, which is at this point, right now, the way it is, it's a district chief, a captain, a deputy chief, EMS captain. In any operations capacity, that's how they work. We always have a span of 1 to 5.
So subject to a flow chart
Or
that
with-
you're.
But it will
Yeah.
never change
But-
though, because if we add a district, if we add a fire station, we know we have to add
Oh, no,
all
yeah,
these
exactly.
individuals, so
Right.
it's never going to fail.
So where does
I
this,
think that's just what we wanna make sure, I think we're in agreement with that statement, that if we grow, we just wanna make sure that we both,
The
the
command
city
staff
and
along with
the
the-
fire association are in agreement that we have to go throughout, not just at the bottom per se, and stretch out the top span of control in a sense.
I see,
We just wanna make sure we keep the safe.
the same ratios.
The safe ratio going forward. This is not to say right now, we're, right now we are falling into the safe ratio, but as we grow, as the city grows, because, I mean, we know that the city has been growing tremendously in the past several years. We just want to make sure that the department is still operating in a safe manner for the city's benefit, you know?
Well, where is this, this kind of document that, or the direction or the directives, whatever it is that we use as a guide for this flow of supervisory capacity, where is that located right now? Is that in the general rules or SOPs, or where, you know, where it might be?
It's in this-
SOPs.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have one in our SOPs, our policies in the fire department.
Did you want a standard for that? An actual
Yes,
standard?
and if you have a standard also, but right now, what I'm hearing is that the standard that the department follows is set forth in an SOP right now, currently, right, okay. And the reason, I'm trying to make sure I understand, your reason for wanting to put this in the contract is to try to maintain those ratios as the department grows.
Yes.
Is that what, okay.
What is the standard ratio like?
3 to 5.
3 to 5?
The reason we put 1 to 5 is basically, if there's that one optional unit, you know, it still captures that, but it's actually 3 to 5.
So, my other question is there an issue that you have seen or have experienced that has prompted this to be included in the collective bargaining rather than the SOPs? Has there been an issue, or do you have a concern about the fire chief or the management, you know, the fire chief being able to keep the supervisory roles under the recommended safe ratios?
I wouldn't say a concern, it's just to make sure that in the future, we keep the safe ratio, like I said before. I'm in agreement with what was stated before, that the city knows that as we grow, we also have to grow throughout the rank structure, you know? And we just want to make sure that it's reflected in our contract to kind of prevent any future misunderstandings or, you know, misconceptions that in the future, we just want to avoid disagreements and misconceptions that we can operate at unsafe ratios when we've been doing this for the last 2 decades. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, absolutely.
I mean,
Just want to make sure I
like-
understand.
Yeah, it's just prevention. I don't think we've had any issues right now as far as the ratio of span of control, but we want to make sure that this is the practice going forward.
To maintain, because the department and the city can be proactive on this to make sure that, you know, it's run in a smooth operation the way it is. Has it been an issue? No. Could it possibly be an issue down the line when we're no longer here? Maybe. But right now, it's just to maintain that proactiveness from our fire chief on behalf of the city, where it's maintaining that growth throughout. So it's kind of just a continual process where this is added, that's added, this is added, that's added.
Okay.
So, because I mean, right now, the way it is, some of them are at capacity, where any triggered growth is gonna start putting a strain on that type of role.
Any other questions?
Ideas. Yes.
The next one will be Article 18. Article 18, uniforms. Article 18.1 currently reads, the city shall allocate $600 per year per member to all fire department personnel for the purchase of up to $600 worth of required uniforms as per City of Laredo specifications. We move to strike 6 and increase it to 750. On both the first line and second.
So it's an increase of $150?
Yes. Actually, it's all under Article 18.1. We'll keep on reading to the next paragraph. Furthermore, the city shall provide $500 gross per year per member, with $250 payable in the first paycheck in June and $250 in the first paycheck in December of each year for all fire department personnel for the upkeep and maintenance of said uniforms. When an employee needs to replace any part of uniform or uniforms under normal wear, the employee shall report this to the chief, who shall then authorize the purchase of the needed garment or garments out of his uniform allocation. Furthermore, the city agrees to replace any part of the uniform or uniforms that are damaged or lost during the performance of employees' duties. Upon confirmation by the fire chief, it shall be the responsibility of each member of the fire department to maintain uniforms in presentable condition at all times. The city assures each employee that all uniform articles that the employee orders, if not delivered by the end of the fiscal year, shall be encumbered by purchase order. On the second paragraph, we move to strike $500, increase it to $700, and the breakdown would be $350 payable on the first paycheck of June and $350 first paycheck in December. The intent of this article is basically just to mirror what the inflation has become throughout the time. That and the rising cost as we're born into evolve. We notice where some of the things that are priced out to us are priced out differently on the website. That issue has never been corrected, so we're paying a premium on some of these. I'm not sure if it's specials or what, but because of that increase in price, our $600 for uniform maintenance, which include boots, pants, belts, shirts, t-shirts, caps, any safety gear, any rescue gear.
So what you're saying is what we bid out for, I know there's a lot of issues, inflation is one, not arguing that. But what you're saying is that what we bid out, they're not honoring that price.
I believe that the price that's being bid out is maybe inflated on their part. I'm not really sure it's being brought to my attention where, hey, these same boots, if I buy them off of their website, comes out, for example, $20 cheaper, but.
Really?
Or even on like Casa Raúl, their local store, they're just I guess the middleman, but you go get the boot from their store, you get it for $30, $40 less, and all they're doing is just basically, hey, they bought this, send it to Casa Raúl, and then we just go pick it up from
And
there.
it's the same
They're
thing?
just profiting like $40, $50 off of that sale, when in reality, they have it at a certain price. So at the end of the day, we're paying significant amount of money off of our $600 just because of that increase in price that they give.
It's a purchasing matter too that we need to address, and that's why I'm asking.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and that's why we're increasing it. I mean,
If,
if the vendor was to correct those issues or change vendors or.
Or even allowing us to maybe
Everything right now is
purchase
gone up in
directly
price
through.
anyway, so.
it's to reflect, some of that inflation, but also to try and correct the issue of the prices of certain things. And the way it is right now, we're limited to buying from them and only them, because if you buy a different uniform or a different, that's not authorized, we're gonna be out of uniform, and now we're in violation.
So is this from Dallas only? Is it exclusive?
Yes.
Yes,
We're
we bid out,
exclusively with.
yeah, it was bid out and it was for us. And so we have issues with them, most definitely I need to
Yeah,
address it with them.
And then that's what makes it harder. We can't really have options to navigate out of the laws itself.
I can see boots maybe, right, but then if you go with one vendor or another, I know the police department, the color is different, the material is
Mhm.
different,
Yes.
and you all need special material for, the different fires that you all deal with and things like that, under your.
And I mean, we understand that, $600 for uniform, yearly, for premium up to standard uniform, shirts that don't fade, uniforms that don't rip, boots that aren't, coming unglued. I mean, you buy more than one boot in 1 year because you're going through 2 boots a year. I mean, that's on the low end value, $240 on just boots alone. That's gonna eat up a good amount of $600. You have some of the material where the uniform itself completely is close to 100. You buy the whole thing. I think the pants are like 50 or 70 bucks. The shirt also that. But that tears. Well, now it brings down that amount. So
So if you call it in your pants rip or burn, whatever, does the city replace those pants?
if it's
or
at a call performing duty, yes. But if it's
But it
because
still comes out of our uniform and
of uniform,
Go out of your uniform? And if you exceed it, you've already spent your $600 on your pants
No, I
rip.
mean,
well,
like I
that's,
say, I
that's
think
where,
I
that's
did it-
where the allocation of the uniform up comes up. So I mean, that's really the intent of it, because one, to address the inflation issue, and two, just to kind of the issue on where,
I mean, something as easy as maybe allowing us to purchase the boots directly through Casa Raúl, their local vendor. I mean, why shouldn't we be allowed to,
or.
I mean, we're open to solutions.
Yeah,
to
we're
this
going
issue.
out for bids, like, kind of a better price, or like I say, if it's a premium for the actual premium quality product, don't just charge me a premium because the money's there, like, type of thing.
Yeah, and
So
then
it,
help
it,
us all.
it's
Yeah, I think we're
very
just trying to help each other, make sure that we still have the appropriate funds for our uniforms and appropriate uniform, quality uniform. And for the city to make sure that, they're not having these issues where vendors might be, trying to take advantage of the situation we're both in.
So, the first, paragraph, the one where it's moving it up to $750, that's automatic every year, right? For you to be able to
Yes.
purchase new uniforms.
And that's exclusive with whatever vendor, right now it's
Okay.
currently Gauls, exclusively with them.
Okay,
We cannot use that money to go and purchase with another.
with another
Vendor,
because
vendor.
that allocated $600 is actually put into basically an account. We log in online, depending on what uniform is available. Of course, we maintain uniformity. And, I need
Oh, you
shirts.
basically get credit,
You get credit.
and then you
Like
just use
in-store
it.
credit type of thing.
Okay.
That's the way it's allocated. It's not an actual here, now you go buy it.
Okay. So, and then the second part, the second one that was, went from that you're proposing goes from $500 to $700 a year. That is for the maintenance and upkeep of the uniforms. And that's not automatic either. You have to get approval from the chief, Or how does that work?
This one is automatic.
That one's automatic,
So you
okay.
can go on your own to get it fitted, to get it stitched up, or straight.
So you want it a check
It-
or
it-
it's in
Those
your,
are distributed to the payroll process.
Yes.
So those twice a year, we issue out a check for an amount that is included in the check. And then they can use that money to.
Basically, any type of uniform.
Upkeep.
You
So
need
then
to
you can go
resolve
to
when
the
you're-
local vendor if necessary, or, okay.
Of course,
And,
as long as it's approved, an approved uniform through the fire chief.
Oh, that's what has to be approved. I was reading in here.
Yes. I mean, like I said,
We can only still use the same uniform, but that money is basically allocated for us to maintain and upkeep the uniforms we already have.
Oh, I see, it's for a replacement. It says when an employee needs to replace any part of the uniform or uniforms under normal wear, the employee shall report this to the chief, who shall then authorize the purchase of the needed garment or garments out of this uniform allowance. So the authorization is to say, yes, this is an allowable
uniform.
replacement uniform, okay. Not just to say, authorize you to actually use the money, because you already,
Yeah.
the money's already,
That's
okay.
right.
Yeah, before we move on, I just have to ask this question, did y'all cost this out, or have the cost of what this proposal may be? No, okay, we'll cost that out. Okay,
Under Article 18.4, A through R are the same. We have added an additional S, athletic shoes. It's been included in the past, but it's just like this last uniform allowance was like, well, we think now like chief, that falls under work boots or shoes. There's an interpretation of what shoes meant. It's been allowed before where we were ordering, actual tennis shoes so we can use to do a lot of exercise or whatever done at the station. So to kind of leave out the interpretation or leave that gray period, just add in athletic shoes. It's something that's already been allowed, it just specifically defines it.
is it currently allowed or
It's
authorized by the chief?
Yes, it's
Okay.
currently.
There's certain athletic shoes that are used on the line, like when we go to boats. They're still considered, they're approved, right? But we just want to make sure that some guys feel more comfortable in shoes instead of boots, So that's why we want to make sure that the distinction is there.
And when you say athletic shoes, you're talking about specific, or you're talking about any kind of athletic
No,
shoes? Just
when it
specific?
comes to any of the uniform options, the fire chief decides, so he will at least have to put one option to say, I allow these specific
Okay.
shoes to be worn out on the line.
Okay,
like they're like neon green.
yeah, that's what I
And then
said.
that's-
And they all order through the same.
The
vendor.
same vendors, okay, perfect.
Article 18, yes.
Yeah, questions on that question?
We were gonna call lunch at,
Oh, yes, I think they were gonna do it at 12:15, so do you wanna take a caucus and find out, and we can, I have to go do my homework too on the TAs. We can take a break.
we can take a break, because I mean, in the
We only
next
have one.
15 minutes.
Yeah,
It can be over to the, it is short.
Because, let me see, let's take a short one.
No, we can take a break.
yeah, take a break.
It's
going on.
Okay, and I'm continuing, we're back on. I'm continuing to work on the tentative agreements, and I've finished several, and what I intend to do is email them to you after we do this presentation. We'll take a break, come back, but in the meantime, I'm gonna email to you what I have so far,
Okay.
so that your team can start reviewing and making sure that it is the same as the current contract. The TAs that I'm emailing you right now are gonna be the ones with no changes. And then I will let you know if there's, for the TA on the holiday proposal that where you added that change.
Mhm.
And then we have a counter proposal on the article with regard to coverage.
Okay.
I can't remember what the number of, is 8. And so I will prepare a counter proposal and a proposed tentative agreement in case, because I believe that it's probably gonna be something we can agree to, so I'll just have that ready already.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm working on.
Okay.
Okay?
And just give me one second. Okay. Here are your 6 copies. As you'll see right now, I think on one of them, the formatting kind of got mixed up. The only thing we're proposing is what's in red.
Oh, okay.
Because on 20, I don't know, you can see on 23.4, letter A and B has a D and E scratched out, or yeah, D and E scratched out. There's no letter C, that's actually at the tail end of letter B. After it says 10 a.m.
Oh, it's over here.
Yeah,
With the spacing.
I barely noticed it right now, like, why isn't this red, I don't
I
ever change
see.
anything from there. That article itself didn't have a changing
There's
from
no
the
change in
original,
there.
yes,
Okay,
so we have to just
reformat
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
reorganize.
Formatting error.
That's been my biggest problem today, is fighting with format and trying to get the tentative agreements done.
Yeah.
Because even in the actual contract, there's a huge space right before the article.
Yeah.
So yes,
So
okay,
that one had no intent, and like I say, it didn't get reshuffled, we didn't change anything on that.
okay.
And we can go back and see the original copy of our contract, just to make sure we didn't change the meaning of that at all. The proposed change we have on Article 23, sick leave, it's 23.2. Right now it reads, sick leave not actually used may be accumulated and paid to all firefighters upon retirement or death without maximum limit, except for employees who are separated, who shall be paid accumulated sick leave up to a maximum of 90 days. However, cadets hired after April 1st, 2006 will be paid accumulated sick leave upon retirement or death up to a maximum of 180 days. Our proposed change is to cross out the last sentence from beginning from however, ending to 180 days.
Are there any of those cadets?
So that's from 2006.
So that's basically a cleanup because there is no such thing anymore, correct?
Well, that
Or-
practice was put in, creating basically 2 different scales, where the previous people were, before 2006, were allowed to basically accumulate all the amount of sick leave, and if used or not used, sell it back at the end of the
Okay.
career. This put a cap of 180 days.
Part of the, I guess, part of the issue that we had there is the city, we were paying some big, lump sum amounts upon retirement. Because prior to the contract that was before this, there was a limit on the payouts. And then so in negotiations in one of those previous contracts, the limit was removed and it was unlimited. So that payout was, and there was some discussion back and forth that was negotiated during that contract. So when we did that, we came back in the following year and we started getting those huge payouts in the lump sums. And so when we came back, the city proposed that we needed to limit that because that was it was an unknown number that we had in there. So that wording that was added, so employees, what was done is we stopped the bleeding from that point. Moving forward, and any employee, any firefighter that came in after April 1st, 2006 will now fall under this limit of 180.
The payouts were huge, over $200,000 in
Yes.
some cases.
Employees that were prior there not to impact them were grandfathered in. So as we're moving forward, they're retiring, so. And in light that we might have some, a lot of retirements coming in next year. You know, I would just, if that would have a huge impact.
Well, and with
next year.
if we look at the times, 2006, I don't think there's a person eligible to retire that graduated after 2006. Because you have to have at least
But
20 years of
16,
service.
so in 4 years, they will be eligible.
It would open up everybody that came in right now as of April 2006, they're capped at 180. So it would open it up back to unlimited and.
Well, that's our, you know, that's our proposal.
Yeah.
you know, and we have-
No, and I think you mentioned something else, it's, you're able to earn it, it's in your bank, and if you need it
Mhm.
for illnesses, you will be able to use it, it's just that upon payout,
Mhm.
there's that gap. So both groups, either the prior, 2006 and the people came after,
Mhm.
can accumulate up to a certain, it doesn't have a limit on the accumulation, it has just a limit on the percent.
So there was two skills. The one was without limit, and then anybody hired on or after April 1st, 2006 was limited to 180 days. Okay.
And I think the other article that we're gonna try to touch on, I think kind of go hand in hand.
Would
It
help
helps out,
alleviate.
you know, with this other one, but I guess we'll bring it up whenever.
There's something else that will be attached to this, kind of,
A different part of this same article.
But that addresses, it kind of goes in conjunction with what
It
you're
kind of
proposing.
will curtail some of that huge lump sum payout.
Okay. So what it is.
And that basically reflects on Article 23.7, the sick leave buyback. It reads right now, sick leave buyback. The city may purchase unused sick leave days from firefighters who have accumulated at least 60 days of sick leave prior to October 1st of a fiscal year at the rate of 1-to-1. In other words, the buyback rate will pay 1 day of sick leave for every 1 day of sick leave up to 8 hours, up to 8 paid days per fiscal year. Firefighters have no obligation to sell unused sick leave to the city. Firefighters who elect to sell unused sick leave shall receive payment from the city no later than the first day of December of each year. Our proposal is to strike may and include shall. This provision's already in there. It has gone through arbitration twice. Once, we're 1-1, basically on that. The proposed change is basically allowing what's already in the article to actually take place.
I think overall it just benefits, I think it benefits both sides. It allows firefighters to sell, you know, make a little bit of extra money that they might need, but at the same time allows the city, you know, to save money in the long run, you know, because if let's say me, myself, going up the ranks, if I accumulate sick leave and if I start selling it, instead of me accumulating it and later on promoting and me selling the city, you know, this large amount of sick leave at a higher wage scale, you know, I think it benefits the city overall to be able to say, hey, you might pay up in the front end, but you know, in the longer run, you end up saving money as far as like paying those people when they cost a little bit less.
You said there's two arbitrations that have addressed this specific article?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think it also helps with manpower. You know, you have people, you know, wanting to accumulate sick leave, so to be able to sell back, so they end up showing to work, they use less sick leave and, you know, it creates less overtime.
Especially at the latter end of their careers. If they went over the limit and then they have to burn it,
How do you
probably be a
address,
higher.
how do you address or what are the issues that, from your end, that you're facing with something like this, with the shall selling and the unlimited accumulation and the payment of, how it discourages somebody from actually utilizing sick leave when they need to, when they're sick, when they have to, when they should be utilizing?
Well, the thing about it right now is you can have individuals, if they're sick, they'll use their annual leave and accumulate sick leave. They're basically trading one type of leave for another, or you know what, I rolled my ankle at home, it's nothing severe, but I know I don't wanna use my sick leave. I can talk to Tony, we're of the same rank, hey man, you mind working for me 24 hours? I'll work for you, you know, whenever said day, I don't use my sick leave. At the end, I'm gonna sell, you know, as much as I can back of sick leave because I managed to curtail. If it's a serious illness, I'm out bronchitis and anything like that, I'm gonna use sick leave. If I come down with any kind of other illness, injury, this, right now, if it's a bona fide injury, illness, no matter how minor it is, you know what, there's no incentive in me of actually accumulating more and more leave. I'll just go on sick leave for what it's intended for. Anyways, I can only sell back only up to a certain amount of days. This actually helps the city through staffing. Instead of triggering the vacancy, they're being replaced by somebody else because of their accumulation. I think you entice the men to do something like that a lot more than to just say, you know what, I'm not even gonna bother to, I'm just gonna, because I'm not feeling well today, I got issues with irritable bowel syndrome, I woke up kind of with a little cough, I'm just not feeling, and anything where it's gonna trigger the vacancy instead of actually, enticing somebody else to find other ways of reporting to work.
So when you're doing, and just because I don't know and I haven't looked into how this works specifically for this department, if you were to swap with somebody, instead of using the sick leave, does that trigger any kind of overtime
That's
pay?
exactly what I just wrote. That's a question.
No, actually prevents
It
it.
actually prevents it.
So,
Yes.
so if that person that you're swapping with already has
His.
their
112.
shifts
But you
and
can't swap with
their,
the same person in the same shift.
Yeah,
No.
right, but
Oh.
if they, within the time period that overtime is calculated,
Mhm.
if they have, if that swap causes them to go into overtime or is already in
No, it doesn't.
overtime?
No.
It's an exchange of hour per hour, and a payback of hour per hour.
Okay,
And at the same rank.
At the
Yes.
same rank.
okay.
It's just like
So
a,
that
Actually,
doesn't
I don't get
trigger
paid.
for the city, it doesn't trigger a contractual
So
or
when-
federal labor
when the
standards
person
act.
exchanges,
Yes.
right, if they, let's say it's Oscar and Carlos, he's working for Oscar, Oscar's name is on the, basically, on the
Okay.
roster, but if there's paperwork that says that.
I'm gonna have to pay him back on his scheduled shift.
Okay,
And normally I'm at his beck and call, hey, I need,
Question.
He's not, he
So
doesn't
the
get
liability
paid.
wise, God forbid, right, something happens to
Mhm.
you.
There is paperwork
there's paperwork stating
that
that he was
traces
working.
the amount of hours that I exchanged with him and he pays me back or vice versa.
However, if when you exchange, you're exchanging for that shift, but if there's a holdover, like in the other instances where we have the 2 hours and the 4 hours, that person that is exchanged will get that pay, the additional 4 hours that they stay over.
If it's
They
a
will
stay
get that
over,
overtime.
yeah, if it's a stay over or something like that.
But I guess at the same time,
But
if that person stayed.
it would have been the same
It would have been the same
Kind of
as,
address what you're asking on your
Right.
side. Potentially it could trigger the OT, but not necessarily for the exchange.
I think that would,
the exchange is not triggering the OT, the stay over, because if I would have
Right.
gone to work or somebody would have gone to work for me, the stay over is still there.
right.
It's
And
it's the same thing as right now, if I'm an acting captain, either until further notice or I'm just assigned that day as acting, but he's working for me, he's getting the acting pay. The exchange is not causing the increase.
Right, yeah,
It's just a fact of, per se, the vacancy's there. If they respond to a call right before 8, they come back, it's, 9, 10 o'clock for whatever reason, depending on the call.
So what happened?
The event itself triggers the overtime, not the exchange
right.
itself.
And my question was, how does the swap or the exchange affect overtime for the exchange? I'm not talking about
It
the
actually-
stay over.
It would prevent it, and that's why you see it like, guys who are on the sick leave incentive, that they don't use sick leave very often, they do exchanges because it's their way of like
Saving that.
saving the leave and incentivize them to save the leave, right? Because they had no cap at one point. And now that there is a cap, a lot of guys aren't incentivized to save their leave, which is causing a lot more overtime because they do use the leave, if necessary.
Okay,
And I'm very well aware of the Shaw and May. And for the city, at one point, it was because of budgetary constraints. I think it was in 2008, maybe 2008 that it occurred.
Mhm.
And so we were going through a financial crisis with the city, and we weren't able to afford to do it. And so we wanted the option to be able to say, we can if we can afford it, we won't if we can't. And that was strictly a budgetary constraint at that point.
Okay, so we need to evaluate the cost in the budget, the impact on the budget.
Because,
that this
and
proposal
something,
is.
we don't know what the economy is gonna look like, you know,
No, yeah.
inflation or whatever, a recession. And so if something comes up and peso devaluates and it affects us completely, we were worried about not being able to know where to get it from.
So my question for the city would be, since 2008, have you not paid the sick leave buyback?
No,
No.
and we were considering this past year. We ran some numbers, being completely honest. The largest people who have accumulated is public safety area, not so much firefighters, just in general, public safety. The employees of the state of Laredo don't have the 1-to-1 ratio, they have a 1.5% ratio. And so that's something that we said, well, you know, if we could do this, I think that it needs to be straight across the board, everyone, not only police and fire with an exception and employees with a certain, either we all go to 1-to-1 or 1.5, depending on what it is. So we were contemplating it recently.
And I think on top of that, I think we had another issue because when we were paying it out, I don't remember if we were doing the incentive case. So that was another argument that we had going back and forth. They said, well, you're buying the sick leave, you should be paying us the incentive pay, and we're saying, no, we're just buying the sick leave. So there was some there that still some potential issues that.
Yeah, and that added on to it,
Yeah.
in addition to, we may be able to look at it, but definitely if we do look at it, we're also looking at incentive pay and how it impacts for us.
Yeah, we just figured it would give a long-term savings for both the city and the fire department as far as budget goes.
And the reason we do bring it up is that in all technicality, the sick leave hours are in the budget. It has to be budgeted. You're not just
We have
accumulation.
accruals,
Mhm.
we do have accruals, not all the accruals are funded at this point
Mhm.
for all the liability.
Mhm.
That is one issue that we do have, so they're not all,
Unfunded.
we have an unfunded a very big unfunded liability in some areas, especially. I think you know. So it's not only you we're looking at, if we impact this, if we implement this, because I believe there's a Me Too clause in the police department. And so, like I said, the largest impact is not only the fire department, but it's public safety in general that we're having to look at, and that does affect the city entirely.
Okay.
So,
So,
Roxanne, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, Roxy, did you, do you know where the fire department time swap is?
Where,
Statutes are in the law?
oh, which
Under
side do you have?
Under
Yeah,
FLSA?
right.
Yeah.
So
that's just, in essence, the way it's written is that if I swap times with Victor, it's just between us. The department and the city has a right to set, paperwork if they want to track it and all that. But, the city has no exposure as far as cost.
And I just wanted to make sure what was happening here at this department, so that's why I asked, because I don't have the information if I don't ask.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
And everything we have to print. Article 38, we do have it on file, we just need to print it out. You wanna take a-
We have a pen right there.
Yeah, we can take a quick break
Talk
to
about
print
just,
it.
like I said, because we had it down, but like, did you ever actually make the correction? No.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So we just take a.
Yeah,
10-minute break
this
just
is
for
a
that.
working session, so that's absolutely appropriate.
Okay.
So, okay.
Please no.
Just so you know, I think the video and the audio are on.
So we're back. Before we proceed, just to let y'all know, we got the embossment stamp.
Oh, good, perfect.
In case we need it today, so we can just
We will use that today.
Here are the 6 copies of the new article we're gonna propose. For the record is Article 38, arbitration procedure.
And let me pass it through because we're gonna have to walk through some changes I think that you have.
Like I mentioned earlier, we did one correction, but we noticed till after it was printed out that it wasn't changed on every single individual line. So we'll just make a notation to kind of save on paper and time.
Yeah, and I think you're gonna make notation and we'll walk through it.
Yes, we'll
And then
walk
you're gonna email me the formal
Yes, the formal.
proposal,
Yes.
that's gonna be the official proposal. Okay.
Arbitration procedure number 1, as it reads, if a grievance is submitted to an arbitrator, if the parties fail to agree upon an arbitrator, a list of 7 qualified neutrals shall be requested from the American Arbitration Association, parentheses AAA. The association and the city shall alternately strike the names on the list. The hearing shall be considered in accordance with expedited labor arbitration rules, which are as follows. The proposed change is after AAA to add or Federal Mediation and Conciliation Services, parentheses FMCS. And this is intended to also reflect on letter D.
Any reference to the triple
Any
A?
reference to
Any
AAA, so
reference.
basically just right off of that, so that would reflect on letter D,
G.
G. U on both,
Hold on.
S,
You,
U, and I believe that's it. Unless we find
Right.
another one somewhere.
So I have my note is that you're adding the FMCS to the first paragraph, and then I have a note here to add to all references of the triple A.
Yes.
Well, if you want, we can just change it to the arbitrator.
Oh, okay, or change to the arbitrator.
Yeah, that's what you had said.
Yeah, I guess we have to read it in context to make sure it would make sense, because sometimes,
It's not just a simple
right.
plug-in, yeah.
Learn that the hard way.
And the simple intent of this is to basically have that full option of when it comes to arbitration. Hopefully, we wouldn't have to, but if it does, and the issue that's arisen is we still currently have an arbitration hearing that, because of circumstances beyond each other's control, it just, the timely manner hasn't been reached, so it kind of just gives a more of an option, a plan B backup.
So I have utilized, I have dealt with collective bargaining agreements and arbitrations where we have the option to get a list from either or the AAA or FMCS. But if I recall, there may have been a mechanism on how to decide that.
Okay.
Because here, this is the only question I have, just looking at this initially, is that if the parties fail to agree, a list will be requested, but it doesn't say who would request the list. I think in one contract I dealt with, and it may have been in Corpus Christi where we have done this, I think it was the city. I need to look, I need to figure out what the triggering mechanism is, but that's up in the air, and I can see the potential for the different parties to be requesting 2 different lists, and then there's an issue of which list do we use?
Mhm.
And that's just the thing I think that we need to address ahead of time and figure out whether it's by agreement who we're gonna use, because sometimes I think you could, and it just depends on the circumstances, we could alternate,
Mhm.
or sometimes, one party may not have available arbitrators, but we just need to figure out the circumstances of how we're gonna request that list, who requests the list, and how we determine whether it's AAA or FMCS.
Well, the language that I think you're referring to in the contract is talking about, it's a mechanism similar to 143 appeal under 143.010, where we can agree
Right,
to find an arbitrator, pick an arbitrator, agree on an arbitrator, but if we don't, then it would go to either AAA or FMCS. And I see what you're saying, here, who's gonna ask for it and all that stuff, it may come in court, you know.
it does, and it's just a step of the process, I have found it way easier. The grievance process is a difficult process for everybody. By the time we get there, there's already a disagreement. And to make it easier, we should have the process outlined so that we don't have to be fighting about a technicality or just a little piece of the process, and just focus on the matter at hand and get the question answered, I think is what we need to do. So I just, I'm gonna look and see at what other contracts have that I've dealt with, see what the best practices, and see what's most fair. I mean, that's really all that we can strive to be is fair in the process. So, okay. And if you have any suggestions for that particular issue, feel free to address it in the proposal. You're going to email to me, and we can further discuss. But that's just the issue that offhand comes that I can see maybe being just a little snag, and it just needs to be addressed. That's all.
Other than that, at this moment, this is what we have.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any other questions on this topic. I think this is more information I've gotten from Ralph, and you'd be more language than this.
Okay, this, I may have to read through it, because the changing of the reference to the AAA may have some additional substantive issues or questions that may need to be addressed. For instance, like one of them is that the parties, and this is under U, the second paragraph, the parties may by mutual agreement conduct the hearing in accordance with the standard rules of AAA. So would it be the rules of the organization of the arbitrator selected, things like that. So I'm gonna go through and identify just issues that we may.
More procedural
Yeah,
issues.
more procedural issues so that we can talk through them. I think that's probably gonna happen on this particular article. I'd like a little bit more discussion and collaboration on what it is that we wanna accomplish and how to make the process fair before we come up with a counter proposal, because I think that would kind of help the process overall. Because this is a due process,
Yes.
and so we want to make sure that the due process
proper,
is all there.
Well, and the other aspect of that is, and I had talked to the guys about it, adding the FMCS is not going to address the issue that we were talking about as far as timely award, because a lot of times, and you know this, Roxy, the list of the FMCS are the same list, or list of people that AAA
Right.
have. So it's just, oftentimes, I think it comes down to the cost of the service itself, one's less than the other or something like that. So.
Right, and you're right, and sometimes we get a different list, but most of the time, the lists of the arbitrators tend to overlap.
Yeah.
And I do know there's an issue on the timeliness of the award in a current pending arbitration. I don't know all the details, but I was made aware of that, and I need to look further into that and see what is it that's missing, or what has caused that to happen.
Yes.
So we will look into that and make sure that we get this addressed, because I think it benefits both the city and the firefighter dealing with this particular process. Or the union dealing with the process. Okay, so we'll look into this, but I know that I'm gonna have more questions on this, and I'm probably gonna engage in more discussion as we work through this particular one. Okay. Very good. Okay, so for today, is this the last article that you're presenting today? Okay, so just to go over, the fire union has presented additional counter proposals, and I have Article 12, Article 18, Article 23, and Article 30. Is that correct? Okay. And so we'll go start doing our homework on these as well. And what we're gonna do is, we're still gonna, there's one more, I think that there's a necessity for one more session. I'm almost done with the tentative agreements and the counter proposal. So I believe within the next hour, I'll be able to have them completed and have already been emailed to you so that you can review them. And the next session, I would like to go over the tentative agreements and possibly execute them and sign them. We can talk about our counter proposal on one, which I will also prepare a tentative agreement, just, just for efficiency. And we can still work on it if necessary. That doesn't mean that that's the last, But if, I think that we will be able to bridge that gap and have an agreement on that one with the coverage issue. I think Article 8 was it? And then if there's anything else we need to talk about at the end, it's open to there. And if you want to talk about upcoming proposals, I'll let you know what it's going to look like the next time, because the next time we sit here, I think is going to be July 28th. We're going to come up July 28th. And we will be responding, the city will be presenting its proposals and responding to the proposals that you have presented today. So that's what we expect, and that's why I expect to get done, and just to keep this moving. And if there's anything else that comes up from the union that you need to present on the 28th, please, we'll utilize that time to do so, and we'll just discuss it and make sure that everybody has their time to present and ask questions and whatever they need, ask for information, whatever it is. But we're going to caucus, and I'd say, and in order for me to give me time to finish them up, email them to you and your side to caucus and be able to review the tentative agreements. Let's say maybe about 4 o'clock. That would give us a little under 2 hours. And I think that if there's more time necessary, we'll meet there, but we'll definitely meet somewhere between, at the 4 o'clock hour for the last part of the session. Okay. All right. Right, we went over this morning that I'm preparing tentative agreements on the 13 articles for no change, and that's Articles 1, 2, 5, 9, 13, 14, 24, 28, 33, 34, 36, 39, and 40. And I finally figured out the formatting issue. And then there's 2 tentative agreements, one with a counter proposal on Article 8, and there was another one on the, I forget, I don't have my notes in front of me, but was it 21? Which one was that one?
That was holidays.
Holidays, yes, the holidays, the holiday one. Yeah. Yes, so we'll hopefully finalize those today, and we have the, everything that we have to do to execute them, and I'm preparing them, and that should be to you shortly. Okay. Okay. Thank y'all. We got all the tentative agreements for today typed out and done, and I've emailed them to you. And the no change tentative agreements, there's 13. I forwarded to you Article 1, Article 2, Article 5, and we'll go through them again. Article 9, 13, 14, 24, 28, 33, 34, 36, 39, and 40. So those are 13. And then I was preparing, I was looking at 2 for possible TA today. I forwarded to you a proposed tentative agreement for Article 21, and that's for the holidays. We've accepted the substantive changes proposed, but the TA looks a little bit different because of the formatting issues, and what we're attempting to do is correct the formatting issues. Okay, so that's why it looks like that. But the substantive is, we accepted what you have proposed. I am working on a counter proposal for, as I said, for Article 8, but it seems and the coverage part is not the issue.
Mhm.
I neglected to look at the changing of the 6 months to 60 shifts portion for
Okay.
the assistant driver acting pay.
Mhm.
And that may have a cost implication, and we have to analyze that or see if there's any kind of cost implication in
Okay.
that. And I need a little bit more information.
Mhm.
So I'll be working on that, and we'll be providing a cost proposal, or a proposal for that once I figure out if there's any cost impact, and if so, what it is, and we can analyze that. So
Can I
that
ask
was
you a
the other
question on
issue I
that?
forgot,
What-
yes.
How do you foresee a cost of?
So it, right now, the way it reads is that it's 6 months, and it's 6 months within a calendar year, and then the assistant driver would qualify for acting pay as a driver, correct? So with the current situation, and I need to also find out, there's some information I need, but one of the things that I'm thinking about is if somebody covers through overtime or otherwise, and I don't even know, I don't think the swaps would count, but if there's situations where we have a vacancy or someone, a vacancy that needs to be filled,
Mhm.
and it's filled by overtime, and that they get their 60 shifts sooner than, sooner than the 6 months, then that is a possible added cost for the city. Say somebody's doing a lot of overtime, sometimes, I don't know, I need to look at this too, because I don't know if they volunteer or what's mandatory, et cetera. Take all of that into account. Say they get their 60 shifts in 4 weeks
Mhm.
rather than, or excuse me, 4 months rather than the 6 months. So that adds now acting pay for somebody for an extra 2 months. Didn't happen before, because before you had to fulfill 6 months. Well, and I know it's not consecutive.
And just to clarify on that, the acting pay is only triggered when they drive again. It's not for the rest of the year. So
Okay,
they can complete, there's 60 shifts. I mean, we go by 60 shifts because that's what our paper actually says.
okay,
They complete their 60 shifts, and if they were to, of course, it doesn't happen. If they were to never drive for the rest of the month, for the rest of the year, they don't make acting pay.
okay,
It's not a mandatory acting rank, it's acting pay, rank pay. What it is anytime you drive in the capacity of the driver, after you complete your 60 shifts, that's when you get paid.
okay,
So if I go in as a regular assistant driver and I'm a pipeman or a firefighter that day, then I don't get paid as a driver.
okay.
And also on to clarify also with your concern, it's a current practice right now when these assistant drivers get overtime. If it's an overtime as a driver, it does count towards their 60 shifts. And like I say, we keep saying, referring to 60 shifts because the actual paper that's in play right now, where we have to confirm each shift that's driven. Of course, it doesn't matter if it's a whole 24-hour shift or a 4-hour or 8-hour, as long as they drive within that day or assigned to drive a unit within that day, it constitutes a working shift. So if they're working exchanges and it's their turn to drive, it counts. If they do pick up overtime, it's also one that it does count. So like it's a current practice right now.
Okay, so that's what I need to, I don't have all the information on that. And so that's really, when I looked at it, said there's a lot of things that I don't understand and I can't explain, I can't discuss with my team because there's some data that I need.
Yeah.
And so that's the part, that's the only thing. The coverage part of that TA, or that proposal on Article 8, there's no issue there. I just need more information on the 60 shifts and what impact it is, because if the city asks me, I need to do my due diligence
The
to
full
say.
intention, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
No,
the
go
full
ahead.
intention of just that is just clarifying what we already have in practice.
Yeah.
Whatever, it's standard operating procedure right now. So
Okay,
all 60 shifts are covered in a form, and I think it's on our LFD resources.
okay,
But we have to fill out every shift and who your officer is. There's no, I'm gonna fill out an extra one here, like, it's all accounted for.
Right.
You know, they go back and they check to make
do,
sure.
and do they have to be approved by a
So
command staff or somebody?
you put your officer there that you work under.
Uh-huh.
So whenever you turn in your letter for your 60 shifts, they go by and they verify one by one, every shift that you were on.
With every
master
roster.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
so there's really, they have a large accountability towards that. specifically because there is a cost factor after the said assistant driver fulfills his 60
Fulfills that
shifts.
60
Anytime
shifts
he
or the
drives,
6
now he
months.
has
Yeah.
active rank,
Okay.
you know?
And again, the 60 shifts is because, on average, the average shift per month is 10
Yeah,
shifts, is that
Yeah,
right?
that's where we're
About-
getting to 6 months.
Okay,
So-
that's where that number came from.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we were just trying to clarify or make it just what it is for 60 shifts.
Sure, and so, and I'm not in the operations part, and I need to understand, so that's part of where the data that we need in order to understand what it means and make sure that it accomplishes what both sides intend.
Yeah.
So that's all, it's not anything controversial, I just didn't have enough information to say,
Yeah.
yes, we can agree to TA, and then I don't,
Yeah, it's understandable, and like I
Right.
say, it's current procedure. We're just cleaning it up so it'd be basically more understandable.
And who proves it?
When each shift that you drive, whoever the ranking officer there is, if it's a driver that's acting captain, or if it's a captain.
So
that-
one higher.
So one hire, they sign off on it, they know that you drove, and you actually have to go, because you don't have that signature, they'll tell you, go get that signature, and make sure, we're not gonna verify until you have that signature. Once all the 60 slots are filled with all signatures with the dates, I think it has a unit also.
Well, it used to be the signature, now everything's through the resources.
Okay, well, now.
electronically.
Yeah, electronically, so now you fill in the shift you work, the unit you work, the date, and the officer that you were under.
And then when you-
That's a new procedure.
When you finish it, you go up to your chain of command, give it to your supervisor, he gives it to the district chief.
And then
And they
I'm
turn it
assuming
in.
here, the deputies verify it and let the fire chief and accounting know, hey, they did complete, assistant driver.
Yeah,
Not everybody does
Not
it
everybody
all
does
the time, so sometimes, when I was an assistant, I never filled them out. A lot of the times is you end up completing your 60 shifts by
By the
the
end of
end of the year,
Okay.
October, November.
I think out of all the years I was
Is it
assistant
worth
driver,
it?
1 year I was able to complete it, and I think there was one
So not
shift.
everyone completes.
Not everybody completes
Okay.
it
it.
just depends on circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but we're looking at that, we requested that information. So, okay, so here's I have printed out, copies of each tentative agreement article. I have two for original signatures. I printed out 3 copies just in case, you never know, one might mess up. So, but this is the article, and here, I'll give you the 2 copies, and so you can look at them and we can execute them. And these are printed off exactly from the email, directly from the email that I sent, that's where I pulled up.
And these are the ones that aren't any changes.
These are the no changes, yes.
So we already done.
And in fact, if you want to just talk about the form specifically so that we all understood that there was no changes, I have tentative agreement and I did mark no changes, so the intention is on there, that there's no substantive changes.
You're just gonna have to remember to remove that.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, it's part of it's part of the title.
Yeah.
We didn't it's not part of the actual article.
So do you have, I saw in the email you sent us, that's the complete document. Is that the one you're working off of?
Yeah, yes. What I did was pull the article from that complete
From that,
collective bargaining Word document, put it onto the title, the form tentative agreements that we have here, and then we can just pull from there. So we already have a working document that we can work with.
so you haven't missed a step.
And, well,
Feel
and,
like that's what you were like in court.
yeah. And when I did this, it took me a while, only because I compared the Word document that I pulled from to the PDF, or the actual physical signed document that we have, because, there's I'm working with 2 different documents, a Word and a PDF that's signed, so I just wanted to make sure there was no inconsistencies in there. And that was the reason that I titled it No Change, because if there's some sort of formatting error or something, we all know the intention was that we wanted the article to remain the same.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so before we get done, or, once we have everything TA, we'll sit down with the final TA document and review it. put 12 sets of eyes to it.
Sure, and I'm gonna try, because I know things get tedious at the end. Once we execute these, I'm gonna try to have a running document already that I will share with you if you want, and we can, that way we're all working off of the same document, so. Yeah, I have to sign it, you see.
And then after you
And
sign
then
it,
you-
we'll put it
and-
in the emboss.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I wanna see that.
Can I fill out the date on these?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
so it's the 14th,
Yeah.
14th
I had one
day
like that when on my books.
of July, and it's, my computer and my iPhone have two different times, so I'm gonna go by my iPhone time, because this seems to be 5:17.
Yeah, you can see the TV 517.
And every time she would say the time in the morning.
Yeah, I realize that my computer is like 3 minutes behind.
Yeah, you kept on saying time, I'm like, wait a minute.
So I'm gonna have to look at my iPhone from now on.
Hey, that, lunch was very good. Thank you very much.
That was a very good decision on this Tenientes part yesterday.
They have awesome chicken.
It was a fantastic.
I've heard that their menu is really good, but I have never had an
Here, just so
opportunity.
you can emboss it, look at where I put the times in.
Left or right hand side?
Oh, it really doesn't matter, whatever you prefer.
Sure.
I'm not
You're a
gonna-
Oscar. You should have, yeah, you should have Oscar or Victor Ambassador.
Means that this coming up upside down, so we gotta do it. this way. I don't know, we installed it wrong?
It's online.
I don't know if you can change it. Usually, you just stick it in, wherever.
Hmm?
Wherever it-
Yes,
I don't know
I had
what
an
you-
extra copy, oh, here. These are the extra copies, you're gonna hold the ones that are not signed, but we're making two originals.
You guys may have worn them out.
What have you been using them for?
I think the
Tentative
first time
agreements?
was,
No.
actually, I think that it was two contracts ago when we got this.
Yeah.
Besides that, I'm not exactly sure.
Oh, for you,
Yeah.
for balance.
Oh, yeah.
For balance. For all.
And for your credentials, when you go to
Association.
conventions and stuff like that.
I'm not sure why it's going upside down. It was intended to be like that.
I have an extra copy, do you wanna,
Oh, no,
no? Okay,
the extra copy,
Yeah, because I have an extra one as well.
that's fine.
okay,
I mean, it came out upside down, but no.
that's okay, but at least it has, it's in the embossed ones, okay.
You're getting
So
one, we
this
keep
is,
one.
this is Article 1 tentative agreement.
Mhm.
Here I have Article 2, to intent and purpose, no change to that one, tentative agreement, and it's 14th of July, 5:19 PM. get the link that they. No, it's okay. Okay.
There you go.
Okay,
I put on the
Here's
bottom,
the
it should be
original.
right side up.
yeah, the original. Then we have tentative agreement, no change to Article 5, non-discrimination, signed today, July 14th at 5:21 PM. I'll give you the time to do it. Okay. Now what do we look for? It hasn't flickered on. You want something to fill out the account? She comes in and have it. Say that again? You want somebody to fill out the top for you? She is a notary. Which part? No, I can do it. It's okay, because we're doing this. Yes, yeah, okay. And then tentative agreement on no change to Article 9, time off to vote, signed the 14th day of July, 5:22 PM. Here's it. Okay, and here we have the tentative agreement, no change to Article 13, the residency requirement at 5:24 PM today. Okay, and then tentative agreement, no change to Article 14 probationary period, that signed at 5:25 PM today. did you get that last one? Okay. Tentative agreement, no change to Article 24, court lease. I don't think I've written this much in a while with a pen. Right. Tentative agreement, no change to Article 28, payroll deduction of dues.
Okay, no, you're good. There was a boss.
Yes. Okay. Tentative agreement, no change to Article 33, no strike, no lockout clause, signed at 5:29 p.m. Make sure I put the P on the PM.
Yes.
Full strike, Kenny? There's one you'll have to do, and circle it.
Tentative agreement, no change to Article 34, defense of civil suits against firefighters. And it's at 5, I think it's 5:30, is that right?
Yes.
The next one, 36.
Yes.
I think there was just on one of the ones in parentheses, I think there was an I. I don't know how minor that is, but. That one.
Oh, it does look like that. I copied it straight from the,
Yeah, I think it was already.
we can make a note to just like to correct, in final contracts.
Yeah, it
I'm gonna
looks fine
put
to us
here.
as far as right now, TA, but just,
Sorry.
for the final, I guess.
I'll put it on both so that we remember, because if I put it in a note somewhere else, it will get lost.
Oh, yes, that always happens.
is it? 532. Okay, tentative agreement, no change to Article 36 contract copies, but there's a note to make the correction for I-201, signed at 5:32. There's the extra one. Okay. Tentative agreement, no change to Article 39, stability agreement at 5:34 PM.
There should be one more thing, right? Is it?
Yeah. Two more. Tentative agreement, no change to Article 14, savings clause signed at 5:35 PM.
Article 40.
Excuse me, sorry, let me reread it. Tentative agreement, no change to Article 40, savings clause, right, signed at 5:35 PM.
I think my signature has gone from complete evolution of how I started to,
Mine does not look the same whatsoever from the beginning.
like I could be able to come back in 20 years and argue, ours was the
That's
same.
not fair. You don't recognize it.
I'm sure that I'm adding letters that aren't in my name.
The Roxanne with two X's.
Uh-huh.
Put an extra A's, take off an E, put an extra N.
See, I messed up. I just messed up.
Oops.
You can tell it's me. Okay, and the last one, this is actually a changed article. This is a tentative agreement, Article 21, holidays, and it lists, it adds holidays and lists all the new dates that were proposed. And we have accepted the fire union's proposal. And that is signed on 5:36 PM. Do you have all the ones, the signed ones?
I'm scanning them already.
Okay. I just want to make sure I have, like, go over them. Okay, can you bring them over here? Sorry.
They're trying to be efficient.
Yeah, this format makes it a lot easier.
That's what I thought.
Which part in Boston?
I don't know where they ordered it from.
When we have our elections, all the ballots have to have it in Boston. To make a
I was wondering where we could buy one too.
informal ballot.
Usually office supplies, stores just have it around
I
wire.
wonder if they have an electronic one.
I think they do, and that
Probably
was
expensive.
I think that was the intent of having it almost like a time clock where you, and it does it, but yeah, it's probably a little bit more
Yeah.
pricey.
I saw
Okay.
one.
So we'll just
Yeah.
keep on doing it.
We were signing too many. Okay, so just so we can go over the ones that we have to make sure. We have a signed tentative agreement for Article 1, a signed tentative agreement for Article 2, a signed tentative agreement for Article 5, a signed tentative agreement for Article 9, a signed tentative agreement for Article 13, a signed tentative agreement for Article 14, a signed tentative agreement for Article 24, a signed tentative agreement for Article 28, a signed tentative agreement for Article 33, a signed tentative agreement for Article 34, a signed tentative agreement for Article 36, with a notation to correct the I-201 for the final agreement. A signed tentative agreement for Article 39, and a signed tentative agreement for Article 40. Is that correct?
And 2020.
Oh, and I'm sorry, and then a signed tentative agreement, or the signed tentative agreement where we accepted your proposal on Article 21. Okay.
You want to see?
Okay, so, we got a lot of good things going today, and, we're taking your proposals that are still pending, and we're, working on them, seeking information. So if we have any questions or need any information from your side, I will reach out and ask for it in the hopes of making things more efficient and moving things along. But we will prepare our counter proposals and proposals for the next meeting on July 28th. And we will also make the public posting for that, and I think we'll just keep the times the same, starting at 10 a.m.
Yes, to go back, you said the city budget workshop is scheduled the 20.
The workshops are 9, 10, and 11.
9/10.
We're submitting it.
Yeah, we have an item on the agenda for this 18th, but we're gonna propose the dates to make sure everybody's available.
Okay,
But those are the 10 days, so we have 9, 10.
so in August.
In August, but we're submitting it to them for their review
That's one
on the
second.
27th of July.
Is the next one? Okay. yeah, we're good with that.
Okay, all right. And if there's any other changes or anything that comes up that we need to address, just email me or call me, as usual. The lines of communication are always open, and We had a good day today, and I look forward to continuing to work with y'all and getting to a contract.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.